An anonymous hospital staff member, her voice trembling and her gaze darting as though she expected shadows to follow her every move, came forward with a revelation so chilling it threatened to shatter the fragile glass of certainty Bill Spencer had so painstakingly reconstructed. She swore she had seen Dr. Grace Buckingham slip out of Liam Spencer's hospital room mere moments before the code alert rang through the corridors. Her white coat flapping like a specter's wings, a sterile injection kit clutched in her gloved hand as though it were a weapon rather than a tool of healing. That single image haunted the back halls and storerooms where nurses whispered, "What was in that syringe, and why did Grace leave so quickly?" Meanwhile, Bill, fueled by paternal fury and determination, had thrown the full weight of Spencer Publications' resources behind a forensic pharmacology team, demanding to know exactly what substance had coursed through his son's veins, and at what concentration. When their analysis returned with the bombshell finding that the bioavailable concentration of the drug in Liam's bloodstream matched only 50% of the dose Grace had ostensibly administered, the hospital's whispered rumors erupted into an uproar more deafening than any life or death alarm. The puzzle pieces refused to fit neatly. On one side lay the anonymous witness's testimony, painting Grace as the last person seen entering and exiting that room, her purposeful stride speaking of intent rather than care. On the other lay hard laboratory data, the blood assays calibrated to forensic standards, indicating that only half of the potent sedative meant to induce respiratory arrest had taken effect. Had Liam, in his weakened yet still determined state, thrashed against the bed straps, fighting for every ragged breath as the needle punctured his skin, causing Grace's injection to backflow or be aborted prematurely? Could the partial dose have been nothing more than a tragic accident, the byproduct of a dying man's final fight for life? Or was the truth far more sinister? That Grace, in a display of Machiavellian cunning, had deliberately underdosed him to simulate a natural cardiac shock, leaving the rest of the story to the heat of Bill's impulsive rush into the room, which he later claimed had driven Liam's adrenaline levels to peak and, paradoxically, revived him? In that scenario, Grace's gambit would have been nothing less than a perverse experiment in theatrical medicine, a crime of hubris designed to manufacture a miracle that would cement both her fame and her influence among the hospital's elite. Every theory carried its own weight of horror. If Liam's struggle had truly interrupted the injection, then Grace's culpability might be reduced to negligence, reckless, unforgivable negligence, but negligence nonetheless. That explanation painted her as a fallible professional whose split-second miscalculation nearly cost the life of a man she professed to save. Yet in the eyes of the law, negligence that threatens life is often punished with the same severity as premeditation. Hospitals, like cathedrals of hope, rely on the unspoken covenant that doctors will do more good than harm. Once that covenant is broken, public trust collapses like a house of cards. Bill imagined prosecutors leveraging the witness's account and the pharmacological report as twin pillars supporting charges of criminal negligence, perhaps second-degree murder or involuntary manslaughter, arguing that Grace's momentary lapse had led directly to Liam's collapse and that she had fled the scene out of panic rather than to summon aid. But a darker narrative called to Bill's instincts, one he could neither ignore nor prove. Grace's surgical precision with data wipes and network sabotage suggested a mind far too adept at concealment to leave such a crucial error to chance. What if the underdose had been intentional, part of an intricate dramaturgy in which Liam's near-fatal shock would become the final act of a self-perpetuating legend? Having engineered his initial tumor disappearance with forged prescriptions and manipulated charts, Grace would need a sensational second chapter. The miraculous revival of a patient at death's door, defying not just medical science, but human expectation itself. Staging a natural overdose shock that could be attributed to Liam's own physiology, or to an unknown allergic reaction, a sudden clot, a mystical lapse, would shift all scrutiny away from her hands. Then, when Bill plunged into the room in a panic, his yells and frantic CPR might be hailed as the true life-saving force, overshadowing any suspicion of foul play. In effect, she would have harnessed Bill's own impulsiveness as part of her tableau, a puppet master orchestrating every heartbeat and breath under the guise of clinical drama. Such complexity could only have been conceived by a mind that not only understood neurosurgery, but also possessed the rare gift of programming and network architecture, a skill set Grace had quietly cultivated, it seemed, between brain surgeries and briefings with hospital administrators. Bill reflected on the severed network cable discovered months earlier, the precise, surgical cut in the data feed that erased surveillance footage. Who but a true insider, one who had both physical access to the server room and a sophisticated understanding of network topology, could have executed such a flawless blackout? And who else had been present in that data center during the lull between visiting hours? The questions blurred into one unbearable truth. Grace Buckingham had all the means, motive, and opportunity to choreograph both the disappearance of evidence and the partial administration of a lethal dose. Now, with the police investigation pivoting on the divergence between the witness's statement and the lab findings, Bill saw his adversary's arsenal laid bare: conventional medicine, clandestine coding, and the inscrutable logic of a mind convinced that the ends justified the means. Yet despite the mounting evidence, the courts would demand proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Would the jury believe that Grace, a decorated surgeon lauded for her innovations, could sink to the level of murder for fame? Or would they opt for the more palatable verdict that a tragedy had been born of error rather than design? Meanwhile, the anonymous nurse's safety hung in the balance. Without her willingness to testify, the chain of custody for her statement could be questioned. Fearful whispers circulated among the staff. What if Grace, cornered, resorted to intimidation or bribery? What if the same network backdoors that erased CCTV footage could intercept hospital communications and expose the whistleblower's identity? Bill knew he had to act swiftly, securing the nurse's testimony with legal protections and ensuring the forensic team preserved every shred of biological and digital evidence. From the syringes themselves to the residual drug traces on empty vials, from the time-stamped entries in the electronic medical record to the latent boot sectors on the wiped hard drives. As the investigation approached its most critical phase, the question of intent loomed larger than ever. If Grace had indeed misdosed Liam intentionally, she would stand accused of the most chilling form of betrayal. A doctor turning on her patient, weaponizing her oath to heal as a means to construct an unassailable myth of miraculous recovery. If it had been a struggle, a tragic confrontation between doctor and patient, the story would morph into a cautionary tale of desperation and hubris. Either way, the collision of medicine and technology, of human frailty and criminal cunning, had created a vortex that threatened to engulf every life connected to the case. Liam, recovering once more under the shadow of uncertainty, Brooke Logan, whose open support of Grace's work had placed her squarely in the crosshairs of both moral and legal scrutiny, and Bill Spencer himself, torn between the hunger for vengeance and the duty to pursue truth with clinical detachment. In the sterile waiting rooms and in the press conferences beyond, every word uttered and every silence held would shape the final chapter of this saga. Would the jury see Grace's code as the telltale signature of murder, or the inconsequential quirk of a woman who simply couldn't abide by inadequate security measures? Would the pharmacology report stand as incontrovertible proof that her intentions were malevolent, or could her defense argue that bioavailability can fluctuate, that human bodies are not test tubes, that partial absorption is neither rare nor damning? And in the hush that descends before a verdict, would Bill find solace in justice served, or would he glimpse the hollow victory of exposing a truth so terrible it could never be fully believed? Only time and the unflinching gaze of both law and public opinion would tell. But one thing was certain. In the high-stakes drama of Los Angeles's most celebrated soap opera, where love and betrayal dance on a razor's edge, the final injection of truth would determine whether Grace Buckingham emerged as a fallen genius undone by her own arrogance or as a tragic talent undone by the chaos of passion and desperation that too often fuels the human heart. And as the city held its breath, every heartbeat echoed the same question: who pulled the trigger, and who saved the life that hung in the balance? Los Angeles has always felt like a gleaming revolving door of passion and betrayal. The bold and the beautiful will prove no exception as the city's elite step into the light of triumph and the darkness of uncertainty in swift, dizzying succession. The heart of this week centers on the miraculous recovery of Liam Spencer, Scott Clifton. His once inoperable brain tumor vanished like a phantom at dawn, leaving his family and fans alike gasping in wonder. In the soft glow of hospital room lamps, father and daughter finally share a moment of unguarded joy. Beth and Kelly cling to Liam's hands, tears of relief tracing paths down their cheeks as they whisper words of love and gratitude that seem too precious for the sterile white walls. Never has a medical miracle felt so fragile, so drenched in suspense. Never has Bill Spencer's Don Diamont fierce devotion to his son shone so brightly. The elder Spencer, who once fought tooth and nail against Liam's every misstep, now stands humbled by gratitude. His gruff exterior softened by the realization that he owes his son's very life to forces he scarcely understands and to the fierce maternal devotion he himself never knew he possessed. But even as the Spencer clan celebrates this impossible victory, darker currents swirl just beneath the celebration. Cassandra Creech returns this week as Dr. Grace Buckingham, her presence like a faint chill in the summer night air, reminding everyone that true miracles sometimes come at a cost. Grace, the brilliant neurosurgeon whose groundbreaking, but ethically questionable, techniques supposedly eradicated Liam's tumor, will loom large in the unfolding drama, her every smile hiding a labyrinth of secrets. Rumors abound that her methods skirted the edges of medical protocol, that off-the-record consultations and unmonitored after-hours follow-up sessions provided cover for something far more experimental than the public will ever allow themselves to believe. As Liam reclaims his strength, the files on his recovery protocol have become federal exhibits. Whispers of manipulated charts and missing dosage logs haunt the corridors. Grace's composed facade begins to crack with every question asked, every subpoena served, and every vial of narcotic left unaccounted for, leaving viewers to wonder whether her genius was born of compassion or hubris. Meanwhile, the echoes of last week's cameos still reverberate. Adela Paz's nurse Sheena, first glimpsed during the tense days of, will step into the spotlight once more as an unlikely linchpin in unraveling Grace's back-office maneuvers. Her tentative admissions: "I thought it was just routine," will force long-buried hospital recordings and erased surveillance footage back into focus, casting new suspicion on the sterile wings where life and death dance a delicate tango. Alongside her, Dr. Adhikari will re-emerge, his quiet expertise providing the scientific counterpoint to Sheena's frightened testimony. His meticulous logs may hold the missing timestamps that prove whether Grace ordered the lethal spike in Liam's pain medication or if someone else preyed upon his vulnerability. Their intertwined narratives will crystallize into a single question: who truly wields power in the corridors of power, and how far will they go to protect or betray the lives under their care? Across town, the Forrester estate simmers with intrigue as Ivy Forrester, Ashley Brewer, steps back into the fold with an air of secrets half-whispered in the shadows. Her unexpected return raises more questions than answers. What drove her away in the first place, and what has she discovered in her absence? Ivy's reappearance will ignite sparks with both her former confidants and her rivals, reminding audiences that loyalty among the Forresters can fracture as easily as glass, and that love, once broken, demands payment in full. Within the majestic walls of the Forrester Creations offices, Ivy's steady gaze meets those of her estranged family, Steffi, Ridge, and even Taylor, each encounter crackling with tension as old wounds bleed into the present. As she strides through the sunlit atrium, folders clutched in her hand, viewers will suspect that Ivy holds the missing piece of a puzzle that could shift alliances, unravel empires, and redefine who holds the creative and emotional throne at the legendary design house. And then there is the matter of old flames rekindled and new ones set ablaze. Liam's astonishing second chance at life throws open the doors to his heart in ways neither he nor the women who love him could have predicted. Will Steffi, whose steel-edged resolve masked a tender devotion to Liam, seize this opportunity to remind him of everything they once shared? Or will Hope, whose steadfast faith and unyielding optimism were tested again and again by heartbreak, capture Liam's heart with the promise of a future unmarred by past mistakes? Their intertwined fates will unfold in scenes brimming with unspoken glances and half-finished conversations, each a testament to the power of love to heal or to wound. With Bill's blessing, and perhaps a nudge, Liam may traverse a path fraught with both possibility and peril, torn between the twin beacons of loyalty and desire. Fans will watch with bated breath as each beat of the Spencer family's collective heart echoes the question, can a man who stared death in the face truly find the courage to love again? Meanwhile, Brooke remains at the eye of the storm. Once an unshakable pillar of support for Grace's humanitarian work, Brooke now finds herself ensnared in the legal fallout of Liam's near-fatal treatment. Her soul-wrenching decisions, funding Grace's secret research wing, vouching for her integrity, and even standing behind her in front of skeptical investors, are now under intense scrutiny by hospital administrators and federal investigators alike. As she grapples with her own culpability, Brooke must confront the chilling possibility that her philanthropy unwittingly enabled a crime. Scenes of Brooke pacing the halls of Logan Memorial, face pale with anguish, will give way to explosive confrontations in hushed boardroom showdowns and tear-stained phone calls to Bill, who stands both as her accuser and her protector. Her journey this week will test the limits of forgiveness, loyalty, and self-recrimination as she either redeems herself or watches everything she's built crumble to dust. And lurking at the fringes of every montage and whispered conversation is the question of who will arrive and who will depart as the revolving door spins onward. The online previews promise surprise visits that could tip the scales of power, a familiar face from Los Angeles's glittering past, a hidden sibling with a score to settle, or perhaps a figure from the distant Logan Spencer archives whose return will stun even the most devoted viewers. Meanwhile, departures loom like storm clouds on the horizon. A beloved character may exit under the weight of scandal, choosing exile over disgrace. Another may vanish into the sunset, their storyline concluded in bittersweet silence. The week's cliffhangers will leave hearts pounding and social feeds aflame with speculation. Who will take their final bow and who will step into the spotlight to fill the void? As July 25th draws to a close, the bold and the beautiful will leave its audience suspended between relief and dread, caught in the magnetic pull of family bonds and shattered certainties. Every revelation, from Liam's daughters chasing him down hospital corridors to Ivy's cryptic dossier clutched in trembling hands, from Grace Buckingham's carefully curated calm to Brooke Logan's raw confession, will serve as both climax and prologue to the drama yet to come. In this city of angels and demons, where lives intertwine like red threads on a loom, the only certainty is that no victory is ever final, no trust ever unbreakable, and no love ever free from the shadow of past sins. As the on-screen door swings open once more, viewers will hold their breath, for in Los Angeles, every hello conceals a goodbye, and every goodbye may pave the way for the most unexpected return.